The alarm on my wrist screamed before I even opened my eyes. I sat up inside my small shelter dome, heart pounding, and grabbed my scanner. Something was moving outside, fast, circling the dome twice before stopping near the entrance. My hands were shaking as I reached for the door lock. On this planet, nothing moved that fast unless it was hunting or being hunted. I had crash-landed on Velk 9 3 weeks earlier. My ship was gone, torn apart on impact, and I had been surviving on ration bars and rainwater ever since. I had learned to fear every sound the wind carried, so when my scanner picked up movement outside, I expected danger, not what I actually found. I opened the door slowly, ready to run back inside if needed. Lying on the cold ground was a strange egg, smooth and gray, about the size of a large melon. It was warm, too warm for a rock, too warm for anything that had been sitting outside all night in freezing wind. I should have left it there. That was the smart choice. But curiosity got the better of me, and I carried it inside the dome and set it near my small heater. That night, the egg cracked. I woke up to a sound like knuckles popping, over and over, until the shell split wide open. Out crawled a small creature, wet and shaking, with folded wings and claws too big for its tiny body. It looked nothing like anything I had studied in training. Its eyes were gold, bright even in the dim light of my shelter. It looked straight at me and made a sound. "Dad?" I froze. My mind refused to accept what I had just heard. I told myself it was a trick of the wind, or maybe I was more exhausted than I realized. But the creature said it again, clearer this time, stumbling over the word like it was trying to hold on to it. "Dad? I am not your dad," I said out loud, mostly to convince myself. The creature did not seem to care about my objection. It crawled straight into my lap, curled into a tiny ball, and fell asleep as if it had known me its whole life. I sat there for a long time, unsure what to do, while the wind howled outside, and my new problem slept peacefully on my knee. I named her Ash. It felt right, since her scales grew darker with each passing day, shifting from pale gray to a deep charcoal that shimmered faintly under sunlight. Within a week, she had grown from the size of a small cat to something closer to a large dog. She followed me everywhere inside the dome, chirping the word "Dad" whenever she wanted food, attention, or simply reassurance that I was still nearby. I told myself I was only keeping her because she might be valuable information for the science teams back home. Nobody had ever documented a species like her. That excuse worked for exactly 1 week. On the 8th day, my scanner picked up 3 unfamiliar signals approaching from the eastern ridge. I grabbed my binoculars and climbed onto the highest rock near my dome. 3 armored vehicles were crawling across the dry plain, kicking up clouds of orange dust behind them. I had heard about groups like this from other survivors on the emergency channel, traders who searched crash sites for anything valuable, especially rare creatures that could be sold off-world for enormous sums. If they found Ash, she would not be treated kindly. She would be seen as cargo, not as a living thing. I climbed down as fast as I could and rushed back to the dome. Ash was waiting by the door, her wings twitching with excitement at my return. The moment she saw my face, her excitement faded. She understood something was wrong, even without me saying a word. "We need to hide," I told her. She tilted her head, confused, but followed me without hesitation as I gathered supplies and moved us both toward a narrow canyon a short distance from the dome. It was a risk leaving my shelter behind, but staying meant being found for certain. The canyon walls were steep and covered in dry vines, offering just enough cover to keep us out of sight. I pressed myself against the rock, pulling Ash close beside me. She stayed unusually quiet, as if she understood that silence mattered now more than ever. The vehicles stopped near my dome less than 20 minutes later. 2 figures stepped out, wearing thick protective suits and carrying scanning devices. I recognized the design from old survival briefings. They were part of a trading group, known for capturing rare wildlife across frontier planets. One of them walked into my dome and came back out holding pieces of the broken eggshell I had left behind. He held it up for the other to see, and they exchanged a few words I could not hear from a distance. My chest tightened. They knew something had hatched here. I placed my hand gently on Ash's back, trying to keep her calm, though my own heart was racing. She pressed closer to me, her golden eyes wide, watching the strangers with a stillness that surprised me. It was almost as if she already understood the danger they represented. The two traders spread out, scanning the ground around the dome. One of them knelt down and examined the dirt near the entrance, likely searching for tracks. My stomach sank when I remembered I had not covered our footprints leaving the shelter. I had two choices: stay hidden and hope they gave up, or move again and risk being seen in the open. Waiting felt safer, but every second we stayed still increased the chance of discovery. Minutes passed like hours. The traders argued quietly near their vehicles, occasionally glancing toward the canyon. My hope started to fade when one of them pointed directly at the narrow path leading to where we were hiding. Ash must have sensed my fear, because she suddenly nuzzled against my arm, letting out the softest whisper of the word she loved to use. "Dad." It was barely audible, but it was enough to remind me why I could not simply hope for the best. I had to act. I remembered a trick from my survival training, something meant for emergencies exactly like this. I quietly opened a small pouch from my supply bag and pulled out a flare designed to attract attention from a distance, usually used to signal rescue ships. If I set it off far enough away, it might pull their focus elsewhere long enough for us to move deeper into the canyon. I crawled a short distance from our hiding spot, staying low, and launched the flare toward the open plain beyond the ridge. It shot into the sky with a burst of bright light, catching the attention of both traders immediately. They turned toward the light, confused, then rushed back into their vehicles to investigate. The moment their vehicles rolled away from the dome, I grabbed Ash and moved quickly in the opposite direction, deeper into the canyon, putting as much distance as possible between us and them. We walked for hours, my legs aching and my breathing heavy, but I did not stop until the canyon opened into a wide valley, surrounded by tall rock formations. It felt far enough away to finally rest. I built a small fire that night, using dry branches I gathered along the way. Ash curled up beside the flames, her golden eyes reflecting the light as she watched me quietly. For the first time since the traders arrived, I allowed myself to relax, even if only slightly. "You know," I said, mostly to fill the silence, "I never agreed to any of this." She tilted her head at me, clearly amused despite not understanding every word. "Dad?" she repeated softly, nuzzling closer to the fire. I could not help but smile, despite the exhaustion weighing on my body. Somewhere along the way, in the middle of crash landings, hidden traders, and endless dust storms, I had stopped thinking of her as a burden. She had become something else entirely, something worth protecting no matter the cost. Over the following weeks, we moved from place to place, staying ahead of anyone searching the plains. Ash grew quickly, stronger, and more aware of the world around her. She learned to sense danger before I did, often nudging me awake at night, whenever unfamiliar sounds echoed across the valley. One evening, while resting near a shallow stream, she suddenly stood up, ears alert, staring toward the tree line. I followed her gaze and spotted a single trader walking alone, clearly separated from his group, scanning the ground with a handheld device. My first instinct was to run, but running would only draw attention. Instead, I stayed low, pulling Ash gently behind a large boulder. We watched quietly as the trader passed close by, his device beeping occasionally as it searched for signals. Ash remained perfectly still, her breathing slow and careful, as if she had learned exactly how important silence could be. The trader eventually turned back the way he came, disappearing into the tree line without ever noticing us. I let out a breath I did not realize I had been holding. That night, sitting beside another small fire, I finally understood something important. Ash was not just something I had chosen to protect. She had become family, in every sense that mattered. It did not matter that she was born from an unknown egg on a strange, distant planet. It did not matter that traders wanted to take her away and sell her like an object. None of that changed what she meant to me. Weeks turned into months. Ash grew large enough to walk beside me instead of needing to be carried, her wings strong enough to glide short distances across open ground. She learned more words, forming small sentences, always ending with the same one she had learned first. Eventually, a rescue signal reached my scanner, promising a ship would arrive within days to take survivors off the planet. I should have felt relieved, and part of me did. But another part worried about what would happen to Ash once we reached civilization. Would people see her as I did, or would they see her the way the traders had, as something valuable to be taken and sold? When the rescue ship finally landed, I made my decision clear to the crew before they even had a chance to ask questions. Ash was not cargo. She was not a specimen. She was staying with me, wherever I went next. The crew, surprised at first, eventually agreed once they saw how she stayed close to my side, calm and unafraid, trusting me completely. As we boarded the ship, leaving Velk 9 behind for the last time, Ash rested her head against my arm, her golden eyes finally at peace. "Dad," she whispered one more time, softer than ever before. I placed my hand gently on her head and smiled. "Always," I replied. And as the ship lifted off into the stars, I realized that no matter where we traveled next, I would never regret the choice I made that stormy night, when a small, warm egg changed my life forever.